What did bring you into men's work? Let's start there.
um, as it does for many men, kind of the cliche midlife crisis. Um, Back in 2020, which I know was crisis time for many people. That ironically was the year I was turning 40 years old, and found myself in that spot that a lot of men are at, where I've done the family thing. I have the family, I have the wife and the kids and the home and the career and all that stuff, and realized that I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel complete, and felt a lot of guilt around that. Um, Felt a lot of panic, anxiety, that type of stuff, and I didn't know what to do. And being a man, I'd been conditioned most of my life to just kind of like stuff it down, and not talk about it, just deal with it. If you ignore it long enough, it's going to go away. And that became uh, impossible. I guess is one way to put it. I got to a point where the prospect of not being here actually became viable, and that wasn't something I'd ever considered before in my life. So when that happened, it really scared me in a way that I hadn't been scared before, and I started to kind of search for some answers. And fortunately, one of the answers that I was introduced to was Sacred Sons, which is an organization. They're all over the globe, and they're more retreat based, right? And if you look at their demographic, if you look at their imagery, their marketing, me being this white, middle-aged, middle-class suburban dad, didn't really feel like I fit, but I didn't know what else to do. And so I signed up for one of their events and drove to Southern California. And I mean, that it's a whole story in and of itself. But what happened there is I finally felt like I could talk about what was real. And I was given a space to do that with other men. And not only was I allowed to do that, I wasn't mocked for it. I wasn't judged as weak or inferior. And what shocked me the most is I had a whole bunch of other men saying, yeah, me too. And that was amazing, because it had never really even occurred to me that other men were feeling some of these same things, because again, we don't talk about it. So that was the first step, was that event, and then just the steps that followed from there.
So what specifically was it that you were feeling? Because it sounds like the Sacred Sons meetup gave you a space to express that, but what originally was that?
I can't say that it was just one thing. Um, the thing is that I was feeling, and I think I just got to a point in my life where I couldn't repress that any longer. I was pretty open to feeling all the good stuff. I'd feel joy, I'd feel happiness, I'd feel pride in my children or in the work that I did. I would feel excitement as I was building something. Um, but when fear came up, when anxiety came up, when sadness came up, when depression came up, I didn't know what to do with that. So I didn't do anything with it. I ignored it. I repressed it. And it just got to that point where it was all coming up and I couldn't stop feeling it. And so it was all of those emotions, all of the emotions that I had grown up labeling as bad.
It's interesting. I was on a podcast of another woman who described feeling as an aspect of the feminine. And I pushed back a little bit on that when I heard that, because I feel like that's very much a cultural construction. So I'm curious, from your perspective, it sounds like for you, feeling became much safer in the company of men. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, how those emotions and expressing those emotions fits in with the masculine.
Yeah, I love that. How it fits in with the masculine is even within men, we have masculinity and femininity, right? Energies, traits, whatever you'd like to call that. I don't believe that emotion or feeling is necessarily feminine. The level of attunement and the level of engagement with those emotions, I think the feminine is more not susceptible, but just more in alignment with those. And if you look at the way we've evolved, that would make sense, as they were more the nurturers, the caretakers, the caregivers. As they had children that were feeling things, they needed to be more attuned to those emotions. They needed to be able to recognize those. Men evolved doing different things, and we weren't as attuned. So what it's done for me in being able to feel my emotions, as far as my masculinity goes, is it's allowed me to step into it more fully. And it's allowed me to be more authentic in what that is.